Hi, I just thought I must talk about orphans that are aging out of orphanages or they will age out anytime soon. For any child who's in a government institution that is a registered orphanage, the laws of Zimbabwe say once they reach the age of 18, they should move out of the orphanage. At 18, normally someone will be starting university if they started school at the right time. I think a number of questions need to be asked. First of all, why was that child in that orphanage? If they lost parents, if they were dumped, or whatever the reason that caused them to be that orphanage, what does it mean when you say now at 18 that child should go out or go back to that family which in the first place dumped him or her? So here is the crisis that then happens. Those children who most of their life, all they have known is to be cared for, looked after by somebody. They never thought about where does school fees come from, never thought about where does the food, who buys the food. Everything was done for them. And for us Christians, it's even more challenging that they never go to go to a point where they say they believe that God shall supply their needs. It's somebody has been doing it. And for some of them, all they know is school, orphanage, church. Okay? Those are the circles, and once in a while, maybe go to some camp. But the rules at the orphanage don't necessarily allow them to take a walk into town or go somewhere. Suddenly, at 18, you are supposed to take responsibility of yourself. You are asked to go out officially because social welfare says you are no longer going to be in our books because you are 18, you're an adult. So these children, many of them find themselves on the street. So some of the boys we see in town harassing us about, can I wash your car? Can I do this? Those are the boys who have come out of the orphanages. For girls, it's even worse. They find themselves into abuse, trafficking, promiscuity, and things like that. And that cycle of orphans is repeated. Some of them, without fail, they get pregnant fast. I have friends who were in orphanages, and they will tell you that the culture just changes. I mean, people don't want, as soon as they discover that you are yourself, you have no one. I mean, how do I marry somebody who does not have a father or whatever? All those things come to reality for these young people as they age out of the orphanages. And I have a 22-year-old. I'm trying to think that suddenly I'm saying that child should be on the street. On the street? Why? So if we don't plan for these boys and girls aging out of the orphanages and do the right thing, I'll explain what I mean by the right thing. We are going to continue to repeat this cycle of orphans because these girls are going to get pregnant, they're going to have children, no fathers and nothing because they'll be looking for someone to belong, someone who loves them, someone who cares for them. I mean, I've spent 18 years. All I know is those people who were supposed to be my caregivers. And now I'm being thrown out of that place in an environment which is 90 plus unemployment. What is expected? What am I going to do? So it exposes these boys and girls to human trafficking, okay? Because somebody just says, I mean, I remember of a girl, she had twins, these toddlers, twins staying in Epworth. And because the guy who got her pregnant as an orphan, she was an orphan, he had promised to marry her. And somewhere, that guy happened to have been married somewhere, so dumped her, okay, with twins, staying in Epworth, no income. When I met her, she was pregnant and she was carrying another baby because some other men had lied to her that they would marry her, but for them, the condition was that you must have a child with me for me to marry you. So the cycle continues, and we keep creating, coming up with all these children with no fathers. And with 1.8 million orphans in the country, and if the church does not step in, when I say the church, the local church does not step in and find permanency. 3 things which children need. Permanency. Who am I? Who do I belong to? That means the church should be adopting, should be fostering these boys and girls. Those who can't do any of those 2, you can support some other family to take in these boys and girls. Now, so what do? I am suggesting for the children who are in orphanages, who, for whatever reasons they are in there, right now, while they are still 5 years, while they are still 7 years, 12 years, whatever the age is, we need to start thinking, planning for permanence issues. The church members need to be identifying boys and girls in the orphanages and saying, John, you are our kid. John should be spending holidays, school holidays at the home with this particular family. Because there will be that day at 18 when John needs to leave the home. What happens to John? But is it possible that sometime during that process, during those years, this family that has begun to connect with John, they can say, John, you can now come to our home. You can leave the orphanage. We're going to adopt you. We are going to foster you. Whatever it is. That's what I think the church should be doing. There should be clear plans. People should know that at 18, this is what is going to happen to Mary. Family so-and-so is going to take Mary into their home as their child. Until that is settled, please don't take children out of orphanages. Let them stay there until that is sorted. If it's not sorted, all we are doing is not being the church. It's not looking after the fatherless. It's just being good to them when they are small. When they are old, you say to them, you don't belong. 18, go away. Another thing which I think the church can do, so while they are still in the orphanage and they are young, let's find a way of getting them. Let's empty the orphanages. Let them be taken into families. Let them stay with families, whether it's, whether it's by foster care or adoption. But somehow, let's find ways that every one of those boys and girls who are in an orphanage, don't just be happy about that we went to that orphanage, gave second-hand clothing, or we brought in some food. That's not enough. Because I know of children who have all that even better. But as soon as they leave that place, things just fall apart. The next thing I'm going to suggest is it possible for a church to come up with a halfway home where you have parents manning that place, father, husband and wife, God-fearing, so that these boys and girls, as they age out of an orphanage, they go into that home. They don't have to pay the rentals. They don't have to be struggling to think about food or whatever. It's a way to transition them to or away from the orphanage. And at that place, they can be taught skills. They can be taught how to manage money. They can be taught how to do certain things that can help them to become adults, help them to socialize, help them understand the cultures that make it easy for them to adapt to the world outside the orphanages. So that's what the church can do also, create these places. It does not have to be one big dormitory, a place like that. No, it can be homes where church members say, my home, I would like to have these young people, they can come and stay. Someone did that to me when I just finished university. For 3 months, I had no job. And they said to me, Jeffat, at the Seven Scotters, they said they got me a bed, they got me a table, a bookshelf, and they said, you have a place to sleep, okay? You can come to the main house for food. And during the week, go and look for a job. For 3 months, those guys took care of me. I didn't have to pay rent. I had a place to stay. I think we can do that as the church. We can help these young people, dumping them because the law says they must get out of the place because they are now considered adults. I still think it's possible to go and sit down with social welfare and get these guys cleared by the police and cleared by social welfare and continue to stay at that place until certain things are in place, that they can take care of themselves, that there's someone they can come to and say, I need help. Someone they can come to and say, I'm lonely. Someone they can come to and say, so how do I go through this process of lobola, of being married, or what do I do? I think as a people, these are some of the things we can do to care for our children.